Thank you. At this time, Recording Secretary Melissa Hunziker will take attendance.
Mr. Steve Holland,
Here.
Mr. Larry Stern,
Here.
Mr. Wayne Wentz,
Here.
Mr. Thomas McCarroll,
Here.
Mrs. Suzanne Halland, Mr. Kyle Spots,
Here, Mrs. Howland is there. I don't know if she heard you.
Mrs. Suzanne Halland, Mr. Jonathan Cleaver,
Present.
All right, before we get onto the agenda items, is there any public comment?
Mr. Spots, I'm having a little difficulty with this. Give me 1 second.
I was muted. I'm sorry. So that was my fault. I had an unmute.
Are you able to see the screen, Mr. Spots?
Yes, I can see the screen.
Okay. My mouse is not working, so I had to switch to another.
Are there any public comments at this time on the agenda items?
At this time, I see none, Mr. Spots.
Okay. Athletic budget update. Mr. Cleaver, if you could just scroll down to that budget report. You could see we are in very good shape with the athletic budget at this point. We are purchasing uniforms, so that'll go down. But we do have some expenses that we just processed. Busing, I don't believe is on here. We just got our spring busing bills and some other items, but we are in good shape with the athletic budget at this point. Sports cost breakdown. At the last meeting, there was a request from the committee members to see a cost of the sports breakdown and basically what we would charge moving forward. Mr. Cleaver, if you scroll down, I believe you have a copy of this. And if you could zoom in a little just to make it a little bigger for the screen. So there is a cost you could see for all of our sports. The recommendation, as discussed at our previous meeting, would be to charge admission for the following, where there's an adult ticket price and student senior ticket price listed there, and there's a breakdown of the expenses that it generally an estimate of what it costs to run an event of that sport. You could see in the expense and then the personnel that's needed to run that event. So with the exception of golf and tennis, which is a course or court rental fee, all of the other ones require personnel to run the event, officials, game manager, scoreboard operator, security in some instances, ticket sellers, collectors, etc. And we work every year to keep those costs to a minimum. But you could see a rough estimate of what those costs are per event. Anybody have any questions or anything on that cost breakdown or anything like that? The recommendation would be for the ticket prices to remain as listed. $5 for adults for those events, and then $3 for middle school events, and then $2 for students and seniors, and then $1 for the middle school events, and JV football for that fee breakdown beginning next school year.
Mr. Spots, those are consistent with the current league that we're in.
Correct. Yeah, those have been the current prices for as long as I can remember here. So once we changed leagues and got into the Schuylkill League, those are the prices that we've been going with since we got into the Schuylkill League. So if the committee's good with those prices and the events as discussed previously, we can make that recommendation to the board for the main meeting.
Fine with me, Kyle.
It's Larry. I just had the input. I mean, we want to have as many students as possible attend these events. Is that, I don't know what the breakdown is between how many people do attend and what usually the student attendance is. Would you have anything that could add some more clarity versus a student versus a senior? I mean, I like to make sure that all the kids get to go if they want to show up, I know I realize $2 sometimes isn't, a make or break situation, but the more kids we can get at the events, I believe the better.
Yeah, with the way the tickets are sold, they're sold together with students and seniors, so it'd be tough to tell directly what is a student versus a senior when you go back on the ticket sale reports.
Okay.
But I know we do events throughout the year, Tomahawk Ticket Night, we do, which all those students get in free with one of those tickets. We do some booster club nights with basketball, wrestling, and some other events. So we always continue to look at ways to promote with the younger individuals and stuff. I don't know if I've ever kind of heard any complaints about the ticket prices for students. I know every other school you go to, you would have to pay for those events, whether you're a student or not. So, and we do promotional things throughout the school. I know every once in a while I get a request to get a couple tickets to hand out to kids, whether it's like attendance aspects or different things throughout the year. So we're always working on ideas like that.
Food drives have been ways that instead of paying to get in, a kid donates a can, they get in free. So different things like that.
Yeah. Okay. No. I would certainly think $2 or $1 aren't cost prohibitive. That's for sure. So thank you.
Okay. And you're good with that recommendation, Larry or Steve?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Kyle,
Yes.
I have a question. Do we have and maybe I'm missing it, like a ticket for all fall events, all winter events? Do we have you just buy one ticket for the season?
Yeah, we do a season pass and a sports specific season pass. Once I have the schedules finalized, I will submit a recommendation to the board on what those costs should be. We usually discount it by like $10. If there's 5 football games, there'll be a discount, or the season pass comes with a reserved seating for football games. That's usually what we do for that. And then basketball, we usually discount it by like 2 games. So if there's 11 home games, which would normally cost you $55 to go in as an adult for the 5 game or 11 games times 5, we'll probably sell it for $45. So people get a $10 off to buy it for the year. And we could do that for all the sports. We did a football, volleyball in the past. Soccer and field hockey, we didn't charge, but that was the recommendation moving forward. And then basketball and wrestling, we've always done a season pass as well. So, and then we do an all sports pass, which I believe in the past we've sold for $75. That gets you in all sports throughout the year.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on, coaching positions, winter head coaches. We had wrapped up our meetings with our existing winter head coaches. This past couple of weeks, we met with the coaching staffs, and our intentions are to offer the opportunity for those to return, unless anybody has any concerns with any of our current winter head coaches from this past year that would like to discuss it at this time.
I guess my comment for the coaching staffs, I'll say congratulations, because with COVID and everything else that was happening this past year, I think between the coaching staff, the student athletes, I think they all did, no matter what group, they all did a fine job. And I, for Lee Heighton, thank you very much.
Yes, I definitely agree with all the constraints we've been given this year and working within those constraints to assure a season for all of our teams has been a tremendous success in my opinion. Athletics building and grounds, there will be a request from Franklin Township Athletic Association to use the facilities for this as early as obviously May's meeting. So the end of May, I think they're looking at the JV baseball field, JV softball field for Connie Mack practices, and then just like Little League practices and so on and so forth to give them an extra field to use. I know the borough is planning on putting the field in at Bear, which I saw in the paper and stuff, so that'll help that association. They are all individuals associated with the school, which has been kind of our guidelines with allowing use of the outdoor facilities this year with COVID. And they do have COVID guidelines in place for their participants in that. So there will be a facility use onto the board for that I wanted to make the committee members aware of. And we all are also getting some requests for clinics, field hockey clinic that our staff wants to run, and some other uses as things are starting to open up more. And I think it's great to get back to some normalcy with that stuff. So, Schuylkill League meeting, we have one on Thursday. So that'll be our monthly meeting, and this meeting will be a principal AD meeting. Again, that's Thursday, May 13th at 1 o'clock. And also Schuylkill League championships for track and field are taking place today and tomorrow. Our girls track team had a great year. They unfortunately lost 76-74 to Blue Mountain, which would have given them, that was their only loss all year, but they've had won some invitationals. They've had some great places at some very large invitationals. So wanted to wish all of our athletes participating in the Schuylkill League championships today and tomorrow in track best of luck. The fact that again they're all excited, you know, they didn't have that opportunity last year, so a lot of the girls and boys that track and spring sports are excited to get to this point this year.
Yeah, and Kyle, on that note, I don't know her name. I don't remember her name offhand, who did the hurdles and won the championship. So congratulations to her.
Yeah, we've had a bunch of girls. I know Kelsey Gaston broke the school record in an event this year. The previous record was her sister. So we've had some great performances, particularly in girls track this season. So we're hoping that they have a good showing today and can possibly come home with a league championship. So we'll see what happens. District 11 update. We had a meeting last month. It was just our annual spring principal AD meeting, which kind of provided just the background of everything. There really wasn't much of an update, just kind of a summary of the season this past year. So PIAA update, there's really nothing at this time. Everything's kind of moving forward, and like I mentioned earlier, they're progressing and opening back up. So that's the plan on that.
Kyle, they will be running the District 11 championships as previous, and then of course the PIAA at Shippensburg. Is that?
Yeah, they are transitioning to a one-day event, which is because of COVID and everything and attendance and stuff. But our league meet is 2 days. Districts will be 1 day, and then states will be 1 day. But yes, they are moving forward with the state and district championships on that. Districts is at Blue Mountain here, and then states is as you mentioned.
So they'll break it up by gender and class, or just by class?
They're breaking it up into sections by class for the participants, and then they're just condensed it. I don't think they're taking as many qualifiers to limit, which is consistent with what they did in the winter for the state meet. But
yeah,
districts is still a similar format.
Okay, thank you.
New business, there is I believe, Mr. Cleaver, you have a copy of this service agreement. Big Teams, which is our current website and scheduling software that we use, that we input all of our schedules through, and we use it for our athletics website. I had an opportunity to discuss with them the possibility of adding on to our partnership to include all electronic documentation, the ability to upload physicals, the ability to upload our code of conducts to there, and that would all be electronic signatures for the schools. So everything would be accessible online, and we would not need to make as many paper copies, which would save thousands and thousands of copies. Right now, when we get one physical, we make at least 3 to 4 copies of that physical, and the page is usually 10 pages. So that's 40 copies right there for one physical. We give them to the trainers, the coaches, and we keep them on file here. If we go this route, it would definitely save us in paper, and it would also create a electronic database that we could access, whether we're on site, off site, the coaches could access any emergency documentation, anything in that aspect. It would just streamline the whole process of athletics and registering. Like I mentioned with our code of conducts, it would assure that we would upload necessary documents that need to be signed off, and if those documents aren't signed off, it'll flag that individual that they should not participate yet. So it'll just help create a more streamlined process to getting athletes registered and prepared for the season. Any documents that you have, you send to the company, and they create excuse me, an online version that you could register and complete for. So the normal package is, if you could scroll down a little bit, Mr. Cleaver, you could see the price. It would be a 3-year deal for 3 years, like I mentioned, and it would expire in February 2023. And the only reason that is the case is because that's when our current contract expires, is February. The normal cost for the package is $2,900, but it is discounted with year 1. And then year 2, it's discounted a little bit, and then year 3 is $2,900. I had asked the individual why the costs were an increase over the 3 years, and he said it's actually the opposite. That the regular cost is $2,900, and it's discounted heavily the first couple of years as an incentive to get schools to sign up. You can see kind of the documentation that they provide. There's all kinds of assistance included on how to get this information out to parents and guardians on how to get signed up and basically mass communicate with individuals. We did do a fall sports sign up via Google form, and I checked it this morning, and this includes all students. They'll be 7th through 12th grade. I think we're up to like 270 kids that have indicated. Now, not all of those kids will probably end up playing, but they have indicated an interest in doing it. And I know there's a decent amount of kids that aren't signed up yet. So just to track, like I mentioned before, you're making 40 copies at 200 to 300 people. You're talking 12,000 sheets of paper, and that's just for the fall sports season. So there's a large amount of paper that we would save and just make it a more efficient service. Looking at the athletics budget, obviously we have a surplus in this budget. We have $84,000 currently, so there is money in the budget to pay for it for this year. And then moving forward, I anticipate the budget, given the uncertainty, it hasn't been passed yet, but if the budget is in line with what we received this year, there would be obviously money in the budget to move forward this. We already pay a portion of this amount. The $2,900 is part of that would be the scheduling software and stuff, which we have to use. That's what we use off of our athletics page and make all of our scheduling changes, and everybody in District 11 uses that software. So if we weren't to use that software, it would create a huge headache for scheduling. So
Kyle, I have a question. So that the monies that are listed on there for year 1, year 2, year 3, they're in addition to what we're paying, or they total
Year
what we're
one,
paying?
the 850 is in addition to what we already paid. We already renewed our scheduling software in February when it expired. So the 850 would be in addition to that, and then the 2400 and the 2900 would include
The
all of
scheduling.
that stuff.
Okay.
If you scroll up, Mr. Cleaver, just a little bit, right above where it says products included, right there it includes all of everything that's included. So Schedule Star is the software we use now for the scheduling. And then there's also included the Fan Central, the Med Central, there's coach certification tracking, which is another great asset that we could use, Student Central. And then the SIS integration is we could integrate our student enrollment right from PowerSchool, which will make that a smoother process as well.
Yeah, the only thing I see it is they spelled our name wrong. So of course we would get that updated.
Yes, we would get that updated before we get that.
But I know just from past experiences having to deal with parents signing off on code of conduct, students signing off on them, collaborating to get all that paperwork out, get it back in, make sure everybody's doing what they need to do this in a more efficient, less environmentally impactful method, and of course to conserve people's time. I mean, it certainly, and like you say, and just from an example of the fall sports, you have 270 prospective student athletes. I mean, you're talking $10 a person, right?
Right.
To make sure we're doing the right things and that everybody has agreed to all of the documentation and has supplied all the documentation, the physicals, any special needs, any of those types of things that would be documented in a system is well worth it than having it in a paper file somewhere. That's for dang sure.
Right, and even the code of conducts are roughly 8 pages, and each
Right.
kid has to sign off on one of those. So that's another, it starts adding up quick, the amount of paper used just from the athletic department that we could cut back on just from going to this resource.
I mean, it's the time, it's the copies, it's the management of all the documentation that is more time consuming than most of the other actions,
Right.
So.
Yep, and it has a self-checking system that, we'll get notifications when a student uploads the system. And there's training and stuff. Obviously, I'm not all up to date on it because we don't use it right now, but it seems they had a whole list of schools that use it, obviously, and it seems that it's a very efficient way to track that, which, it would certainly help with everything that you mentioned.
And to make it easier that it's integrated with PowerSchool, you don't have to seed all the information in there is a plus as well.
Right, you could so any students coming from 6th grade, you could upload them right to the system because those will be your next pool of kids for sports starting in 7th grade. Any other questions or concerns or anything from the committee on this item?
And I'm sure they have their security in place to keep the PPI out of other folks' hands. So I think it's a great idea. I mean, just from a parent's perspective, it is you're doing it over and over again, right? So
Right.
to be able to do it and get it done in a more efficient manner without having to send papers home. I mean, it's the way we've gone for registration. From a student registration perspective, everything's got to go to electronic. So just makes sense.
Steve or Wayne, are you good with putting this as a recommendation to the board?
Absolutely. Moves us up with other schools too, included. So yes, fine with me.
I'm fine.
All right. All right, Mr. Cleaver, if you could scroll back up to the agenda. We are on new business. Event worker rates. Okay, if you could scroll back, there should be a sheet just past the service agreement that you had up that we just talked about. That will detail the recommended event worker rates for next school year. If you could scroll down to that, Mr. Cleaver. Right there. Yep. And if you could zoom out a little, we might be able to see the whole. There we go. So it's detailed there with all the events and the pay scale for the workers. And this is consistent with what we've paid in the past. I don't think this has changed in five or so plus years, but that's what we compensate the individuals that work in that capacity for those sports listed there. So if the committee is good with that, then we would pass this on to the board for approval for next school year for those individuals.
Yeah, I'm fine with it, and I'm sure sometimes we get parents to just do it gratis too. So
Yeah, we're always looking, like I mentioned before, with the cost of the events. Anyway, we could keep those costs down. Whether it's, we don't need a game manager because myself, Sue, or Floyd's going to be there, or Tom. There's ways to keep costs down and get people to volunteer and do other things. So, for sure.
Okay with me too, Kyle.
Okay. And then last thing under new business, Mr. Cleaver, if you could just scroll down, our annual gym floor recoating, which we do throughout the summer. They take care of the gym floors, make sure they put the coating back on top to avoid any issues, make sure that it has a tacky surface to it. We did send out for 3 quotes, and you could see that 2 of them are on CoStars, which is listed on their quote. Last year we used J&J gym floors, which did come in at the lowest. But to be honest, I was not happy with them. We had an issue with the high school. We had a haziness on the floor. We had them come out and redo it, and they did redo it, but it didn't turn out what had turned out in the past. So my recommendation, even though they're lowest, would not to go with them, just because we have used the other 2 previously, and it was a much better finish once they were done. So that is my recommendation. And that was the first year we used them last year, I believe, and they did our high school and elementary center last year. This year we would probably need all 3 floors done. Last year the year previous, we had a vendor come in the late spring and do the middle school, so that's why we didn't need a middle school done in the summer last year. But at this point, it would be time for the middle school and the other 2 to be done each year. And each year, this is an annual thing through the athletics budget. You could see that there is money in the athletics budget to do this for this year. So if we get one of these approved, we could go that route. My recommendation on the pricing would probably be to go with All-American. They are the next lowest, and we have worked with John before on work, and we were happy with that. So he has some recommendations on the product to use for the high school gym and the elementary center. He has a water-based, and then the middle school he recommends an oil-based because of the difference in the surface after coming to look at everything. So the water-based is a little more expensive, but the advantages of the water-based, it's clear. It does not yellow as much, so you get a more clearer look, whereas the middle school is more of a yellow floor to begin with, so the oil-based would not have that difference on that floor.
So would we be using the Express or the VOC oil? I just don't know.
We would use the Express for the high school gym and the elementary center,
Okay.
and then the middle school gym, we would use the VOC oil,
Okay.
which is the bolded per the
Okay,
recommendations.
gotcha. Yeah, and the age of that middle school floor probably causes something to use the older technology, maybe with the oil versus the water.
Yeah, we've had some issues in the past with just it being a slippery floor.
Mhm.
So we did have some individuals come to look at it and give us some recommendations on how to correct that. And that's their recommendation was to use an oil up there. So.
Now that I have.
Okay. If you're not happy with the one that had previously taken care of it, then I follow your recommendation to not go back to them.
Yeah, and they came back and did what they had to do, and on that aspect, it was fine. It doesn't look good. And if we're paying the money, to get it done, and the previous years I've been here, we never had that issue. So I don't think it was a floor issue. I think it was either a product issue or a
application issue.
Yeah, application issue. So I think it's in our best interest, at this point, to just try a different vendor, and see what if we have a similar issue, then we know, it might be something at the end. And it's not like there's an issue. It's just the look. The look there was a cloudiness to the look in some areas.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, you used All-American prior to using J&J. So you were
Right.
with that company as well. So it's not like a completely unknown vendor. So.
Right. And I believe they used to partner with somebody else and so on and so forth. But yeah, again, we reached out to those 3 vendors and got prices on because we have used them in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So my recommendation would be to use the All-American Athletics quote for those 3 gym floors. Typically, we try and get the work scheduled the week of July 4th it would be the last week of June this year because we do a shutdown week of athletic activities. So there is nobody in on those gym floors for that stretch of period, and that has worked well in the past.
Okay.
All-American's fine with me, Kyle, and there isn't that much of a difference in price between them and J&J anyhow.
Okay, sounds good. All right, that is it for my new business. Do any committee members have anything to add before we turn it over to public comment?
Now, I'd just like to, reiterate what Steve had said. Getting through all the seasons this year has just been a monumental event. And, it goes along with what has been happening at the buildings themselves for all the students to keep our kids in school and to keep things moving along as normal as possible. You can't attribute that that gets attributed to everyone that's involved in all the programs. Playing those sports, basketball, wrestling with masks on had to be a challenge for these student athletes, as well as playing, the spring sports. I know there's probably some relaxation while they're doing the running events that they can take them off, but I know keeping them on all the time has got to be a challenge to not only the athletes, but to policing the events to keep them moving forward and keeping the COVID-19 restrictions in place. So that's just kudos to everybody for getting through the year. I look forward to better times in 21, 22.
Absolutely, and I appreciate that, and I will definitely echo, this on to the staff members and coaches, and when they signed up to coach and everything, I don't think anybody expected, nobody expected this to happen. So it's just, shows the adaptability of everyone and the focus on doing whatever we have to do to get the kids to have an experience that they appreciate and get a chance to compete. So kudos to everybody involved. Anything else from the committee members before we turn to public comment?
I'm good.
I only think, don't forget the student athlete. They're the biggest part of all this, and for the fine job they did throughout the whole school year. They were tremendous. My congratulations to all the students. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Cleaver, any public comment?
Yes, Mr. Bradley?
Yes. So the Lehighton Area School District has a policy number 247. It's reference to hazing. And I'm curious, did this government administration, did this government agency ever apply that policy in the way that it was supposed to be applied according to the policy in reference to the events that occurred where these kids were broomsticked? Did anybody in this government agency apply this policy? If you look at the guidelines, it says that the number 5, if the investigation results in substantiated findings, and then it goes on about that. So the question is, was the policy applied? And if so, by whom?
Again, Mr. Bradley, I'm not sure exact on the policy in front of me. However, we do make every good faith effort to.
No, that's not the question. The question is, was it applied? There's a policy. You're responsible for applying a policy.
And exactly.
We write the policy.
Bradley, I'm not
asking the question. You're avoiding the answer. You're avoiding the answer. The question is, was it applied?
At all things, we make a good faith effort to administer the policy.
Yeah, but was it applied?
Administer.
Was it applied?
Mr. Bradley, you heard my response. Thank you.
No, your response sucks, sir. Unky Wayne, did you apply this policy? Steve?
Again, thank you. We had to cut off because of inappropriate comments before. So we'll go to Ms. Bowes. Ms. Bowes?
Yes, I have a question on the Big Team software that you use. I don't remember you mentioning what the cost is for what we already use.
I don't have that exact, but I want to say it's around $900.
Okay, so the cost is not that much more.
No, it's yeah, and I remember when this software started, it was around $300, and as they have added and people have been able to add on to their athletics website, you know, upload videos, pictures, link it to Twitter, Facebook, you know, the costs have increased over the time, but I could pull that up. Like I said, I know we paid it in February, but I believe it's around $900, I think.
Okay, and that was my question because I was wondering how much more it would be, you know, once we got to that 3-year mark.
Right. I think we'll save money in paper just alone, you know.
Right, and that's why I'm questioning it, because since it wasn't mentioned what we already pay, $2,900 is a lot of paper, but then aren't you also charged, because we rent the copiers, isn't there also a charge like per copy?
Yes, that is correct. The lease does come with a per copy charge on our printers.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify. Thank you.
No other comments from the public? Mr. Spots? Everyone had an opportunity to speak?
Okay, next meeting will be June 8th at 10 a.m. So June 8th, 10 a.m. I appreciate everybody's attendance today, and if there's no other comments or anything, motion to adjourn.
So move.
Thank you.
Second.